Hello everyone, we're here with David from Apps Arabia. How are you doing, David?
Hi, very good, thanks, Alice.
Great, pretty good presentation back there on some stats. Lots of stats thrown at us. Just wanted to know now, as far as mobile development is concerned, what kind of apps can we expect on different platforms? We've got so many platforms. We've got Windows Mobile, we've got iOS, we've got Android, we've got BlackBerry, obviously. So where do you see it going in the next 6 to 8 months, or possibly even a year, as far as mobile apps are concerned in the region?
Well, when I consider the various platforms, I tend to measure them using a number of criteria. I've got my 5 key things, and when I look at those 5 key things, there are only a few platforms that are commercially viable from an investor's point of view, from Apps Arabia's point of view, and they are obviously iOS, BlackBerry, now that the app world is live, OV, I'll call it, Symbian Technologies with the OV store, and soon is the Windows Phone 7. Currently, I'm not investing in Android,
Right.
and that's for a number of reasons in terms of the penetration of users through the region I'm talking about. If you look at Saudi, for example, there's very, very little there. But also because of the distribution channel. There is a problem with the Microsoft Marketplace at the moment within the region. Commercially, it's not as attractive for publishers and investors because you don't get the same percentages you do on other platforms in net revenue.
Okay. I may be wrong on this, but I don't think Android supports Arabic by itself. You probably have to have a third-party plugin as well.
I think that's right. But there's also confusion around whether paid-for apps are available in the Android market in every country within the region, things like that. So I believe that Android have a challenge on their hands, which is to do with the classification of their apps in terms of what's appropriate in what country and what's appropriate for what age group. They've got that challenge to overcome, I believe. I don't know the detail behind it, but it would be great if we had more competition and more platforms that publishers and entrepreneurs can look at the various demographics of the target audience they're trying to reach and what devices they have. I wouldn't get involved in a platform unless there's a good distribution channel and a healthy payment mechanism, effective payment mechanism. As an investor, those are the things I'm looking for. Size of market, distribution channel, and payment mechanism.
Okay. Now, one of the stats we saw earlier on today was that people prefer buying English language apps. I know that most of the apps that are Arabic or local are purely to do with religion or culture. There aren't many good apps locally that are targeted towards our region. We've seen you do Kalimat for us, which was wonderful. What can we expect in the next few months? I mean, is that going to change, or are we just going to continuously see just very apps related to religion or Quran or prayer times?
Well, my view is that a lot more people than the research showed are actually using or prefer to consume apps in English than Arabic, even the native Arabic speakers. But that the research number that we got was skewed because of the number of religious apps, the majority of which, nearly all, are in Arabic language. So I think if you exclude Islamic apps, they probably there's an even greater demand for English language. But what we're doing is that we're doing apps in both English and in Arabic, and we're measuring the usage of those apps in terms of how many people want to consume them in English and how many in Arabic. And it's by measuring that we can see, therefore, what the demand is, because I don't think that sort of data exists. Certainly the platforms don't provide the data, so it's up to us to gather that data. So we're building engines to capture those sorts of metrics. We will always continue to do Arabic language as well as English. I believe that there is a growing market in the region for smartphones. I mean, the research backs that up. And I think we need to offer that content, the apps, in both languages and see what people want. Everybody I've asked within the, if you look at the Levant region, for example, they like to consume in English. If you look at the UAE, they like to consume in English. I think in Saudi and in Egypt, there's probably a greater number of people that prefer to consume in Arabic. So I think we just need to provide the option and measure it as we go.
You mentioned iOS as a pretty interesting platform to develop for right now, followed by Nokia and even Ovi to an extent. Now, do you see applications developed across all of these platforms, and is it a challenge to develop across all 3 different platforms? For example, iOS has got a very portrait kind of landscape, very portrait kind of interface, whereas on a BlackBerry almost everything is a landscape kind of interface.
Squarer.
Nokia, on the other hand, is trying out tons of different kinds of form factors.
Yeah.
So how hard is it for a developer or for you as a publisher to sort of take all of these three marketplaces that are prominent in the region and develop for each one of them?
Well, I personally am not a fan of cross-platform. I'm a fan of multi-platform. And what I mean by that is a subtle difference, is building to the specifications of the device. And the beauty of app development is it's not massively expensive at the end of the day. So I believe in building for one platform originally, prioritizing the platforms in terms of your target market, building for one platform, learning from that, and then building for the next platform, using as much as you can from before. But to build an app that runs on all the platforms, I believe is a mistake, because you're not leveraging the unique features of the various phones. You raised a very important issue about aspect ratios and screen resolutions. I believe that's the Achilles heel that Android has. They have a challenge. They have so many manufacturers running their operating system with different aspect ratios and screen resolutions. And one of the very, very smart things that Windows Phone 7 includes, Microsoft have been very smart about this, is they've set standards. And they've said to Samsung, to Nokia, to LG, to Sony Ericsson, to Motorola, to everybody, they said, if you want to run this operating system, then these are the standards you need to manufacture your devices to. These are the aspect ratios, these are the screen resolution. And that, of course, is a dream come true for app entrepreneurs and app developers, because it makes things a lot easier for us.
Yes, Windows has set a standard in quite a few things, but even then we've got different screen sizes across different devices, anywhere from 3.6 to I think 4.2 inches. Doesn't that sort of play or mess up the user experience at the end of the day? For example, a button that is probably, let's just say, 100 pixels wide versus 50 pixels tall, obviously it's going to be bigger on a 4.2-inch screen versus a 3.6-inch screen. So does that kind of not create an issue? I mean, Apple has been pretty specific, and their screen size has been consistent across the first device.
I don't think it's so much about the difference between them, as long as the SDK includes the capability to cater for them all. It's like on the web you have style sheets, cascading style sheets, and you can use CSS files to control how your website looks. In different ways, with different browsers and with different settings on your browser, etc. And as long as the SDK does something similar in whatever it is they do, that enables your app that you're developing to be rendered in different ways easily without having to customize and make bespoke interfaces for multiple different devices, then that makes things a lot easier for the app developers. So as long as those controls are included in the SDK, then I think it's not such an issue if they differ, as long as the tools are there for developers.
All right, wonderful. Well, I know you've signed some non-disclosure agreements with companies, but could you give us a little idea of what's coming from Apps Arabia? Can we get a little bit of idea of what to expect next from you guys?
We have approximately 15 apps under development. We've made 15 investments so far across multiple different platforms. We're very excited to be working on some BlackBerry apps now. One of them is for a leading brand, and it's going to be exclusive on the BlackBerry platform. We've got a mixture of games. We've got some utility apps, some reference apps. We've got apps for big brands. We have, as you know, an app for a fan app for a pop star that's scheduled to be delivered in September, and work is well underway for that. So we've got all sorts of apps. So what we're trying to do is to do stuff that's a little bit original. A lot of the investment applications we get tend to not be that original and tend to be taking something that's already worked and improving it, which is okay. But my sort of request is a call to action for all entrepreneurs out there. Start thinking really creatively and start applying with some very original ideas for our investment, and we'd be happy to invest as long as it's commercially viable. Everything we do is commercially viable, and it's for that reason that at the moment we're not involved in any Islamic apps, because Islamic apps tend to not be done for a commercial purpose. They can be, and there's nothing wrong with that, and we will be involved in some Islamic apps, but for this Ramadan we do not have any apps in the pipeline. But I'm hoping that we will for the future.
Wonderful. And if someone wants to know more about you, they can go to appsarabia.com.
Yep, appsarabia.com, and we operate an online community for everybody interested in apps throughout the MENA region. Membership is free, and there's a lot of value if you sign up as a member on the Apps Arabia website, and it's appsarabia.com.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.